Boas-vindas ao projeto Arte como Ciência. Welcome to Art as Science Project. Bienvenidas e bienvenidos ao projeto Arte como Ciência. Compreendemos que o acesso à arte e à educação estética são essenciais para a formação humana. A arte para crianças e jovens vincula conhecimentos artísticos, especificidades comunicativas e as realidades dos distintos contextos. É sobre esses três aspectos que cada profissional vai conversar hoje com a gente. Seja bem-vinda, Clarissa.
Muito obrigada. Eu vou pedir permisso para falar em plural, porque toda a minha atividade no que diz respeito ao teatro para crianças é feita em colaboração direta com a Máquina de Teatro, uma companhia que eu comparto a direção artística com a Juliana Faessler, grande colaboradora de muitos e muitos anos. Hoje em dia, a companhia Máquina de Teatro, ela se define mais que nada, né, como um coletivo que busca, através das artes cênicas, criar um diálogo com a infância, para o exercício da imaginação, para o movimento dos corpos, que é uma coisa muito importante nesse momento na infância e como estamos vivendo essa questão da pandemia, e criando laços afetivos com os personagens, com os mundos criados e, tentativamente, com a realidade, né? E formação de valores necessários para que podamos imaginar-nos com um futuro mais digno para todos. E nesse momento, com a pandemia, estamos com as mãos bastante atadas, né, com um nível de vulnerabilidade social que a infância no México está exposta, porque nessas comunidades que trabalhamos, muitas vezes, elas não têm, nesse momento, conexão com a internet, ou são muito precárias. E não só as comunidades rurais, onde trabalhamos com teatro, mas também as comunidades urbanas. Enfocamos nosso trabalho com as crianças desde uma perspectiva feminina, né, basicamente. E nos importa muito as questões ambientalistas, porque é o futuro, né, dessas crianças. E também antiespecista. Aí sim, abogamos sempre em nossas obras pelos direitos dos animais, o direito à vida, sim, e à sustentabilidade. Assim que esse projeto, que faz parte do Teatro para Crianças, se chama Máquina Verde, né? E ela atua em diferentes comunidades aqui no México. E buscamos sempre, seja nas obras, seja onde, priorizar o diálogo, também no nosso processo de criação e gestão, né, fazendo uma espécie de criação de consciência, né? Portanto, dependendo se a gente faz teatro, na terra de uma comunidade não urbana, isso implica sempre em saber com que cultura estamos dialogando, sim? E com que antepassados, e também com que tradição. Não? Também tratamos temas formativos da identidade da infância, que quer dizer a solidão, a morte, a violência, a amizade, todos esses temas buscamos colocar como temáticas relacionadas, e também trabalhamos coisas divertidas como a exploração da ciência, explorações espaciais, a cozinha mexicana, né, as lendas e, obviamente, a sabedoria popular, que é muito vasta aqui, né? Eu digo que a gente toma, desde a companhia, a arte como um caminho de conhecimento, sabe? Um diálogo muito intenso com essas outras realidades da infância, essa relação delicada entre as crianças cheias de imaginação e um mundo a ser criado, né? Não só por elas, mas também por nós, que nos orientamos sempre pelo brilho do seu olhar.
Welcome, Idris. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here with everyone. In the arts, we talk a lot about access and removing barriers to artistic experiences, but oftentimes that phrase translates to subsidized tickets or free tickets. But I believe access can also mean that we're being more inclusive in the participation in the art itself. Shape notes in this conversation are connected to the process of writing and sharing Free Play, my collection of open source scripts I released with TYA USA online this past summer. As theaters began to request Zoom-ready plays, short plays that could be performed and shared online, this paradigm fell away and my family became my production team. So in April of 2020, I wrote a piece for Kennedy Center out of DC, their Play at Home program. I had a play I wrote called A Dinner Theater, which was literally workshopped around my dinner table with my family. And in the years of overlap between growing my family and working as a playwright, I had never worked like this before. It was powerful and truly felt like the family business. Now, after the triple blow of deaths of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, the protests began and the Black Lives Matter signs began to sprout out in people's yards, and a lot of questions from my older son. As you can imagine, trying to explain these events to a child, watching their energy shift, watching them deflate, is a parenting experience that no one can prepare you for. But I believe that through the arts, we can try and make the conversation easier. Never easy, but easier. And at the time, I was teaching disheartened students as a college professor, and I saw a need for drama that could spark dialogue and speak to what we were all experiencing. Flash forward in 2020, we had the same need, but everything was different. There were no theaters open, no performances happening. We weren't gathering. And yet I felt the people needed plays that were relevant, timely, and accessible. So I contacted Jonathan Schmidt Chapman, the executive director of Theater for Young Audiences USA, and I said, I want to write some short plays for anyone who has Wi-Fi to be able to download. It is a series of 5 plays: The Water Gun Song, Act Free, Nothing Rhymes with Juneteenth, Hashtag Matter, and Black Flag, intended to spark conversation and serve as a catalyst for action. Each of these short works, written to be read across a multi-generational spectrum, offer different insights about disconnects in racial conversation and the Black experience in North America. If we are making theater that belongs to the people, then we also need to assess it with the same values and goals with which it was created. You know, one of the big questions that we're asking now is how do we get this work out to communities where they don't have Wi-Fi access or they don't have internet access, right? That's a big one. Also, a question is what are the conversations that involve race that are not being addressed in these 5 plays? And so the other question is, how do we create curriculum to facilitate the writing across different communities as well?
Welcome, Iram. Thank you for your partnership.
I've been very, very fascinated by this fact of the specificities of working with children. And of course, the science. If we look at the history of the creation of the life, before the science came into being, the art was already there. If you look at the history of performing art, we look at how the human was treated before the medical science came in, were these magicians who would perform magic, who would drive energy from sun, from the thunder, and they will do all these amazing magic on a body. And who were the people who are sitting there for pure entertainment? The grown-ups were there to see that, somebody's going to get cured. But there was this audience who was there who did not care about whether this person is going to get care, he's going to get cured or not. But they were there to see the amazing performance, were these children. So they were so fascinated, they were so amazed by this very fact that something is going to happen. When something is proved, it becomes science. When it's not proved, it's miracle or it's magic. Here is this generation which is reacting so naturally, which is doing everything so naturally. It's only when we start growing up, when we start becoming grown-ups, and we start learning things, that's when our focus kind of start shifting. We start questioning things, we start doubting. But when we are children, we never doubt. We are always free to experiment. We are always free to explore. Our horizons are big. And that's where I get my ideas to create work for children. My first production that I created for toddlers, which was for children between the age of 2 and 5, I was able to create that production only when I became a father. When I used to see my son at home, that how he's reacting to sound, how he's reacting to colors, how he's exploring these really random things and these abstract things. And while I'm not able to understand them, but I can see he's making a story. He's understanding those things. He is into his own world. What are we doing? We are inviting children to come and explore this pitara, explore this box, what all is there inside, and especially the ones which teenagers, which are now sticking themselves to their screens, and they have stopped interacting with humans. We are inviting them, and we are telling them that no, the human touch, the human connection is the best connection. One day, when we have no electricity, when we have no power, when we have no internet, we still have human. When we had no one, when we were stuck inside our home, we started thinking the more possibilities what we can do. You know, as they say, the necessity is the mother of invention. People started inventing things, and that's what the situation of children, because they were suddenly become prisoners of their own home, that really pushed us to think that what we can do for these children. We started developing new performances, the use of object, the use of sound, using digital gimmicks, but using them live rather than recording, so that even the fun for a performer is very much there. So it's like you have the magic of theater, that every time you go on stage, you do something new. So therefore, now that we are on screen, yet we will do something which is more spontaneous, which is full of surprise.
Welcome, Jerry. We are very glad to count on you.
I mean, art has proved itself as probably the only field that encompasses every other aspect of life or every other profession. We are talking today about art as a science, but we can also talk about art as engineering. We can talk about art as medicine, because of its therapeutic positives. Now, talking about what we do in Nigeria and my artistic work. When Aruja Royal Theatre started, we did not start with any intention of engaging in children theatre. There are some specific things that need to be put into consideration, especially coming from a multicultural background like Nigeria. I will just quickly talk about two projects we have had that has to do with young people. One of them is Nafisa. Nafisa is an advocacy production project which deals with issues of abuse of children's rights in Nigeria. Yes, we are talking to the children about this abuse, and we are at the same time talking to the policymakers. And so Nafisa was written by a friend in the UK, and we co-wrote it. Now, the need to co-wrote Nafisa came because of the choice of language or dialogue, as the case might be, because this was coming from a Nigerian who is based in the UK all our life, and so the choice of language does not reflect the reality of the Nigerian space. So I had to seek our opinion and say, okay, fine, this will be our first major production as it has to do with theater for young audience. Do I have your permission as a co-writer to rework this? And she gave me her consent, and I had to sit down with my team and I begin to, rewrite in the manner we would want the play to appear, such that it will appeal to the policymakers who need to take certain actions to stop, the child rights abuses, especially issues of early marriage in Nigeria or Africa, if you like. And then we had another project which is very close to that. And this was talking about, it's called Karina's Cross, which actually is also targeted again at some of the abuses that young people are subjected to. Of recent, especially with the lockdown, I begin to evolve a different experience because, even though I've been close to my children, like Imran just alluded to here, the opportunity to stay for a very long time lockdown at home with children, begins to play in my head. And so during the lockdown, we were looking at, okay, what else do we do to be able to engage our audience, especially the younger audience, the youths and the children. And so we started what we call story time with Auntie Shine, where we use some African and Nigerian folk tales, to teach the children. And this is not just, them sitting behind their screen and listening, but it is participatory in nature. Because like I mentioned, with the opportunity to bond a little more or longer with my children during the lockdown, I discovered that there are a lot of things we can do better. And so we put that into what we do. In terms of communicating our ideas, in terms of engaging with the children, in terms of getting them to participate and also express, themselves. There is more in little. When you deal with children, yes, they are chitty-chatty, they want to talk a lot, but they expand. And, if you can capture the essence of how children behave, when the production is ready, they are able to hone it. So the play I am making is largely, characterized by features and things that I have picked up from my own children, and that production is meant for 3 to about 6 years. It is going to be looking at issues of crisis, of survivor, and other issues, but it's going to be less didactic because you don't deal with adults the same way you deal with children. The ability to mimic them, to do things that will appear to them that is filled with some objects, where objects will speak to them rather than lengthy language that they probably don't even understand. Using objects, using actions, they need to be able to ask questions and probably to also be able to answer those questions.
Bienvenida, María Inés. Nosotros estamos encantados de contar con tu presencia.
¿No? Haber atravesado realmente un año de pandemia y no saber mucho cuánto nos queda por delante, para mí ha puesto en juego todas las bases de lo que nosotros creíamos tan sólidos, ¿no? Después de creer que habíamos aprendido sobre nuestro propio trabajo, resulta que todo se movió y todo es distinto y sinceramente no sé cómo y en qué bases vamos a salir de esta situación. Yo pensaba mucho en los chicos, ¿no? Que en Argentina por lo menos estuvieron un año encerrados en sus casas, donde el único contacto personal fue con sus padres, donde el contacto con sus amigos era virtual, donde toda la realidad les cambió. O sea, no sé, sinceramente no sé cómo vamos a dialogar con ellos de acá en más. Hemos buscado, como bien decían mis colegas previos, que recursos, formas, virtualidades, la familia, los amigos, el Zoom, o sea, de seguir creando y de seguir en contacto con ellos, pero nosotros no somos los mismos y ellos no van a ser los mismos. ¿Cuáles son las consecuencias que este pensamiento va a marcar en nuestros inconscientes, ¿no? Ver al otro como una amenaza, el signo de un año con tapabocas, con lo que eso implica en cuanto a la censura, ¿no? Porque, bueno, el taparse la boca es una imagen de no decir, de no hablar, de no comunicar. Y esto es lo que nos vinieron pidiendo durante un año con toda razonabilidad. Yo siempre pensé que el teatro para niños y jóvenes es un teatro que se define por su espectador. O sea, es un teatro no es como en otros géneros, teatro del absurdo, teatro clásico, teatro de sombras, teatro de títeres. Este es es el espectador el que define nuestra actividad. Y al ser el espectador el que define nuestra actividad, nos exige mucho cuidado y mucha atención acerca de cómo y qué mensaje enviar. Entonces, cualquier mensaje tiene que ser traducido, diría yo, a ese nivel donde el receptor lo pueda entender. Si es que Queremos hacer un teatro donde el espectador se emocione, donde el espectador salga del teatro siendo algo distinto a lo que entró, no solo un mero entretenimiento, porque el entretenimiento, por supuesto, no tiene edad y no necesita una comprensión profunda, es simplemente entretenimiento. Está bastante de moda, por lo menos en mi país, algo que se llama, o que se dio en llamar, el teatro para toda la familia. Es aquel donde el adulto también puede divertirse, entonces por eso lo llaman para toda la familia, suponiendo que un adulto puede no pasarla bien en un espectáculo para niños. Y sin tener en cuenta que si el espectáculo para niños es un buen espectáculo, el adulto se divierte de doble forma, o sea, se divierte por sí mismo, porque también recibe este mensaje que está recibiendo su niño, y se divierte de ver lo que le pasa al niño que llevou ao teatro.
Oi, Yuki, seja bem-vindo.
Eu, na verdade, sempre penso que, como artista, tenho um formato bem específico, que é provocar sempre reflexões, seja no teatro para adultos, seja no teatro para crianças. E uma das coisas que eu vejo, por exemplo, em Moçambique e em alguns outros países também, é que hoje o teatro para crianças virou um mercado, porque há um público, há quem consome, há quem compra. Então, dentro do meu trabalho, eu procuro sempre trazer, dentro das performances infanto-juvenis, tudo que eu possa discutir, mesmo de teatro com adulto, porque eu acho que a criança é um público muito honesto, muito sincero e, acima de tudo, também tem uma opinião. Então, eu procuro trazer narrativas LGBTs dentro das performances infanto-juvenis. Tento trazer questões como questões ambientais também, as questões ligadas à igualdade de gênero e outras várias questões que precisam de ser refletidas, e quanto mais cedo forem refletidas, melhor ainda. Eu vejo, por exemplo, em algumas performances, que mesmo a questão da escolha do figurino é muito rosa para a menina e o azul para o menino. Então nós podemos também desconstruir isso, de também podermos advogar outros direitos e os direitos humanos acima de tudo. Como é que nós podemos mudar e como é que podemos adaptar esta narrativa e como é que podemos construir, acima de tudo, outras narrativas. Será que é este tipo de narrativas que queremos continuar a perpetuar ou queremos construir outras narrativas? A ilha de Moçambique é considerada um dos patrimônios mundiais, é um dos lugares que é recomendado para visitar, mas há, neste momento, muitos capos, os turistas jogam muito lixo nas praias. Então fomos fazer um projeto que se chamava Lixo Arte, que foi capacitar os grupos locais para que pudessem trabalhar com crianças. E uma das coisas que eu percebi ao fazer o projeto, porque elas pagavam o ingresso doando-nos o lixo, precisamos, acima de tudo, também compreender que as crianças têm uma opinião e, às vezes, não precisamos de as dá-la tudo de bandeja, mas precisamos de provocar uma reflexão nelas e, acima de tudo, poder discutir com elas o que estamos a propor ser discutido e provocado para construir uma nova geração.
Goodbye, hasta luego.
Tchau, au revoir, ha de bra.